Go, 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 go.
Knudsen,
What's going on, Tursky?
this is Two Guys Talking Golf.
That's right, man. The traveling edition.
It's actually three guys talking golf, and two of them are from the same hotel room on the same app screen right now. Me and Greg Moore, photographer Greg Moore from Golf WRX, the famous What's in the Bag photographer. We're here together. Greg, welcome back to the show.
It's nice to be back here from Bonnie, Scotland.
So we're in the same hotel room right now, but that's only because we couldn't get the Wi-Fi to work in my room. We are staying in separate rooms. Let's just get that on the record. I like you, Greg, but not that much.
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
So if people have been listening along to the show, me and Greg are out in Scotland. We went to the Scottish Open at the Renaissance Club. I know we say Renaissance in America. That's not how they like to say it in Scotland. It's Renaissance. And then we'll be at the Open next week at St. Andrews for the 150th Open Championship.
That's pretty awesome. That's going to be pretty exciting to be able to get to go. St. Andrews, 150th Open. I mean, Tiger looks like he's at least over there, at least trying, at least practicing, at least trying some stuff. So I'm pretty excited for you guys.
Well, I don't know if it's Greg's theory or he heard it from someone else, but there's a theory floating around about Tiger that this may be his last either major or last tournament. Greg, what's the theory that's floating around right now?
I don't know if it's a theory. I think a couple of media people on social media have posted that they're hoping it isn't his farewell. And he does the stand on the Swillican Bridge and give everybody a wave and photo op and as he walks into the sunset. So I'm one of those that hoping that it isn't either. And maybe it's just wild speculation on somebody's part, trying to stir the pot a little bit or get a jump on it. For the most part, it's not always about being right. It's being first. So if he does, they can say they were first. If he doesn't, everybody will quickly forget about it anyway. So
typical media guys.
Yeah.
Can't trust those guys.
Nah, not at all.
That's right.
I think it would be like a poetic, romantic theory, that he says goodbye this year, the 150th. He's smiling and waving on the Swillican Bridge. I just don't think he's given up on the game of golf yet. I mean, he still has a great swing. He's still competitive. I think he wants to play as long as he can, and as long as he thinks he has a chance to win. There's no way we've seen him play his last Masters. I think he still has a win in there somewhere as long as he can stay healthy. Obviously, we've seen the pictures floating around of his leg. It's crooked. I mean, we've seen it. It's not in great shape.
Yeah.
But we've also seen his swing, and it's perfectly on plane. And the dude can chip and putt. And he's still going to be the best iron player in whatever field that he shows up in. So I'm going to go on record and say this is not Tiger's last event, and he's not saying goodbye. As poetic as it might be, I think it's probably his last Open Championship at St. Andrews. That's probably true.
Don't they throw it in there every 5 years? I mean,
well, what's he right now? 46?
Yeah, it'd be 51 on his. Unfortunately, his kind of mended body in terms of back surgeries, knee surgeries, leg surgeries, all that. In 5 years, I just don't know if he'll be competitive enough where in his eyes, he's going to go out there and feel like he can win. And like you said, I don't think he plays unless he thinks he has a chance at winning or being competitive out there. So,
but that would be
5 years.
That would be the time to do his farewell.
Yeah,
in that time
yeah,
zone.
True, but
I mean, Watson did almost win at 61.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he was what, like a bad sprinkler head bounce? Yeah, it was like a sprinkler head bounce away from, basically winning that thing. I mean, that is a good point, but I don't know. Did Tom have the injury history though that Tiger has? That's the only question to me. I don't think he did. I mean, I know he was older, but man, it's tough. I mean, just, I mean, granted, next year, the year after, he's going to be stronger or whatever. But he's still limping around a little bit. And I don't know if that's permanent or if that's something that he just still needs to recover. But, I think he's still, unfortunately, a little ways away from, being competitive. And like I said, he's in his mid to late 40s. So it's rapidly approaching, unfortunately. But
he's limping,
I hope it's not his last either.
He's limping because his leg is crooked. Let's not get that twisted. But here's why I don't think Tiger is hanging it up or has that in his sights right now. Because topic number one on the show is that Tiger switched driver shafts this week. And if he's still dialing in with gear switches, he's still concerned about winning and getting his game sharp. So he just switched to a Ventus 6X. I believe it's the black shaft, right, Hudson?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So he had been playing that D Plus limited shaft for about 5 years now, since 2018. I think I went back. That's when he threw it in. So he switches to the Ventus this week. There's a great video floating around where Tiger and Rory are on the range, and Tiger's like talking about the shaft switch. Rory's like, "Oh, what do you got?" Turns out they're playing the same exact club.
Yep.
But Tiger's is lofted up a little bit more. Obviously, Rory's a high ball hitter, really has a little bit more speed than Tiger these days, probably. That's no diss to Tiger. It's just facts. We're talking about miles per hour here. All right, which one's faster? Probably Rory. And he also hits it higher. So it makes sense that Tiger would have a slightly higher lofted driver, but they're both playing Stealth Plus on paper. They're 9 degrees, but I believe Rory's is lofted down to 7.5, and they're actually playing the same shaft. So he goes to hit Tiger's club, realizes it's the same shaft, and it's just kind of a funny moment on a video that's floating around. I did write a story on it, golfwx.com, if you're interested in supporting, reading the full story there. Now, that was the JP McManus, though, and that was a stacked field.
Yeah.
Did you watch any of it?
Yeah. No. So I'm technically on vacation at the moment, so I've followed golf almost none, but I did. I'm on IG, so I saw the shaft switch and was super excited to see that. And it's interesting because to me, the D Plus and the Ventus Black, they're similar shafts on paper, low launch, low spin, but I feel like Ventus Black is a little more stout, launches a little bit lower, and probably spins a little bit less, at least for me, than that D Plus Limited. But both kind of on paper are very similar shafts.
Yeah, I believe that's what the guys at Fuji were saying, that he was trying to bring spin down a little bit. Pretty interesting. Maybe that means he's getting a little pop back recently in the last couple weeks. They said he was getting fit at the Kingdom, noticed a little higher spin when he was trying to go after it. So maybe that's hopeful for the Tiger fans.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's interesting because he's been playing that shaft so long that, like you said, like maybe something just minute. With those guys, we're talking spin number, a spin that's slightly higher. We're talking a couple hundred RPMs. We're talking like very, very little to us, but to them it makes a big difference. And it's interesting because he has been playing that shaft, like you said, for so long, possibly 5 years. That just now, some things maybe changed a little bit in that swing or that delivery, or in the driver head or whatever's changed a little bit, that, he's got that little bit of spin that he needs to knock off. But, like I said, Ventus Black and D Plus Limited on paper, like I said, very similar in a way. I think the handle section in the Ventus is probably a little bit more stout than the D Plus Limited there. But like I said, tip, stiffness, all that, both of them are pretty hefty boys. But he did go down in luck because I think he was playing 70 TX in the driver before, wasn't he? And then now he's playing 6X in the Ventus, so a little bit lighter. I'd have to look at the spec sheet to see exactly how many grams uncut that each one is. They may be somewhat similar, but yeah, 6X, a little bit lighter option for Tiger there as well.
I actually think, I don't know if it was the beginning of the year, this year, but at some point he did switch from the 70X to the 60X in the D Plus Limited. So I was going back to Greg's What's in the Bags and checking out what he's had recently. And I think the most recent time we shot his What's in the Bag, he was in 60X.
PGA Championship was the last time we shot it. So
Okay. So I might be misspeaking right now, but if you go on,
and the one before that was PNC, so he may have gone 60th and back,
right?
Because he was real early in December for PNC.
Well, there's evidence, so we can all go back and check after this podcast and see whether I'm right or wrong. Either way, that was Ireland. That was the JP McManus in Ireland. Me and Greg are in Scotland, so let's talk some Scotland. Would we like to talk? Me and Greg travel stories, because we got a couple of them. Or would we like to start with equipment and the Scottish Open? That's the new pick as the co-host.
I mean, as much as I'd like to hear these travel horror stories that I've been hinted on the past couple days, I think most of the listeners will probably want to get to more of the golf side of it before we get into the terrible travel that happened this week.
Enough.
It's only terrible on his part. I've had a great trip.
Yeah, he's kept us from crashing, driving on the wrong side of the road. But maybe we'll talk about that on the C part of the show. We're on the B part.
Yeah,
we'll stick to equipment. Okay.
All right.
In my opinion, I would say the biggest stories from the week were Zalatoris, Max Homa, and Cam Smith switching into TSR drivers, as well as Justin Rose. He's switching into the TSR 4,
wow,
which is one of the first, if not the first pro to put in TSR 4. We did not have a chance to catch up with Justin Rose this week, but he's on the top of my list next week. We did talk to Will Zalatoris, and we actually did it on video. So if you want to check that out, it's on our Instagram, GolfWRX. It's also on our TikTok, GolfWRX TikTok.
Oh yeah.
Zalatoris is fired up about this driver. He changed nothing.
Really?
He didn't change the shaft. He didn't change the length of the shaft, which he plays at 45 and 5/8 inches, so a little bit longer. He didn't change loft, 8 degrees still, but he just went into the new head and he said, don't be surprised if my average driving distance yardage pops up by 6 yards. That's a significant increase. And what he was saying was that he thinks they expanded the technology out from the center of the face, kind of more out towards the heel and toe. And he's like, the mishits, I'm not noticing really much change with the mishits. Like normally, you hit it off the heel. If you're a 2,800 spin guy, a heel shot will pop up 3,200. He's saying that's not happening. Really forgiving on the heel and the toe. Off the center, he's noticing a mile to a mile and a half, I believe he said, speed increase. So that's kind of the first guy who's given us a little peek under the hood of like the technology and talking about just exactly how forgiving it is heel to toe. So I thought that was pretty interesting on Zalatoris' part. You also shot homers, what's in the bag?
Yep.
And you shot Cam Smith?
Yes.
And Justin Rose.
Justin Rose, just the driver, not a full what's in the bag. We had just shot, and he had made a caddy switch, and his caddy said, as far as he knew, the driver right now was the only change, or potential change. He did have 2 drivers in, but the Titleist guys felt very strong that he was going to put that in play.
So if you want to check any one of those 4 drivers out, you got enhanced photos. But sorry to cut you off, Nancy. Go ahead.
No. I mean, like you mentioned with Zalatoris, I think that's kind of wild to think that didn't change loft, didn't change shaft, didn't change sure fit hosel settings, anything like that. He just took the same shaft, put in the same head, same length, everything, and he's confident that he's going to see 6 yards of difference, or 6 yards, a driver that's 6 yards longer on average over his old one. It is pretty wild, especially for guys like that, as much as they're so dialed in, yes, they're never at like absolute maximum distance. I mean, they want that control too, but to have a guy say that he's going to gain 6 yards and he doesn't change anything other than the same lofted driver hit everything. I mean, that's pretty wild to think that he's going to see that on an average over the entire year. And like you said, to see that, not only is it a little bit faster than TSI possibly, that, the sweet spot's bigger, like everything this year, driver wise, ball speed on off center hits has been just phenomenal. It's great to see the kind of the leaking of the info from Titleist camp be kind of something similar.
I'm holding Zalatoris to this though. This time next year, I'm looking at his driving average. If it's not up six yards, I'm getting in his ear about it. We got to call these guys out on these predictions, at some point. I believe when I looked, his driving average was 311.8, which is pretty impressive for a skinny guy like myself. I mean, we pretty much have the same build, me and Willie Z. Averaging 311.8, and I think he's ranked 16th on tour in driving distance. So
wow,
6 yards would do a lot for him. That would put him in the top 10 of distance. Obviously, there's a correlation between distance and scoring out on tour. The tour's kind of just gone that way. It always has, hasn't it?
Yeah.
The longer guys, they tend to do better on the money list. There's definitely a correlation there. 6 yards is huge.
Well, hitting shorter irons, potentially more lofted shorter irons into firmer greens, tighter hole locations.
That's half a club.
Yeah.
That's half an iron right there. So
yeah, true.
We've talked about TSR at length. We can move along from TSR. I thought another very interesting change was something that we talked about recently. I believe it was at the U.S. Open we talked about this. Tommy Fleetwood, his TF Proto 3-iron versus his P7TW 3-iron. Okay, so we talked about the TF Proto being slightly lower lofted. He didn't end up putting that in play. He had both in the bag this week, and I talked to him about it. He's playing both.
Oh,
He's playing 2 3-irons. One is slightly less lofted. One's 18 degrees. The other's 20 degrees. And I confirmed what his caddy said. Fleetwood said they carry the same distance, but the TF Proto that's bent down to 18 degrees ends up rolling out like 15, 20 yards further. So that's a penetrating, low-spin ball flight that's absolutely perfect for Scotland. So I believe he's going to play it this week. Well, he said he's going to play it this week. I would assume he's going to carry that over to next week. So Tommy Fleetwood, 2 weeks in a row, 2 3-irons in the bag. You got to love that. But he does have, it says 3 on the sole, the P7TW, but he has it stamped 2 on the back cavity, and he's got it painted red. He was like, it's not enough that they're literally different irons. One says TF Proto, one says P7TW. I got to get the number stamped on there as well, so I don't make any mistakes. He's a funny guy. He had a big smile on his face when he was like, "Nah, I'm playing both this week."
That's awesome. I mean, you would expect like he was testing that for this. I mean, these 2 weeks. I mean, that's what he was putting in the bag for. But like you said, I mean, the 15 to 20 yard. I mean, that's 2 clubs, or it's a full club, if not 2 clubs. So I mean, really, one's a 3-iron, one's a 2-iron, and yes, they just have the same number stamped on the bottom. But it's kind of exciting to see that he'll put it in play, and where he's going to use it. At St. Andrews, it'll be really interesting to see. But glad to see we're already starting to see some low lofted 2-iron type clubs into some bags already.
And it's not a driving iron; it's a blade.
Well, and not only that, even if he doesn't use it that often at the Renaissance Club, because they got a ton of rain, I guess, like 4 or 5 days ago before we got there. Yeah. And of course, they were trying to dry it out and get it firm. So it softened. Then we had a little bit of rain the other day too. So it's not necessarily going to be as firm as they would like it. And there's a lot more up and down hill. The big test at St. Andrews, where there's not a lot of terrain change as far as uphill, downhill, but probably firmer fairways. I got to believe he's going to have it in the bag no matter what there.
Yeah, he'll be ripping those things. I mean, with roll, and he catches some of those little slopes out there at St. Andrews, he's going to be hitting that thing an absolute mile.
Before I forget, I have another topic I got to bring up. So I was walking from the media center out to the range. It's kind of raining a little bit, so I'm hustling a little bit. But a kid passes me. He says, "Tursky?" I turn my head. I said, "Yeah, what's up? I'm Tursky." He's like, I'm a Two Guys Talking Golf podcast listener. So I got to shout out Jonathan, who he was down the road. I think he lives about 2 hours away from the course, so we got some fans in Scotland.
That's
Big
awesome.
shout out to him, really nice kid. We got to catch up a little bit. Unfortunately, it was raining, so we couldn't talk more. But big shout out to him. And Greg was getting a lot of love out there in Scotland. I will say that. I don't know if he's too humble to talk about it, but it's always like different when you're overseas. You kind of feel like you're in a different world, like no one knows you. They're basically speaking a different language with the accent, hard to understand. But they definitely follow Golf WRX out there, and Greg's got fans. He gets fans everywhere, but Scotland's pretty cool.
Well, the players, are you the guy from Golf WRX? Yeah. But there was a guy that walked by, and, my username on Golf WRX is PGA43, and my photo's not out there a ton. So this guy was like, "Are you Greg?" And I'm thinking,
what I do wrong?
Yeah, do I owe you money or something?
Kicking me out. I have the proper credentials.
So, but then he was like, "Oh man, I'm on there all the time," and a number of pros. And then we were over at Gullen today, and the head pro was like, "Oh yeah, I'm on Golf WRX. We check the newest equipment out because you guys get it way before we do." So it's just everywhere we go, and we're not wearing anything Golf WRX on us when we're just like walking around. Yeah. We do it Renaissance, of course, but it's always interesting to find out how many Golf WRXers are out there, especially when you come to a different country and see how we provide a necessary service to them, because we're going to see the equipment 2, 3, 4 weeks, maybe 3 months ahead of time before their reps even get it over here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, no, that is, because the release schedules in Asia, Europe, whatever, all over the world are so much different. I mean, one, sometimes products are slightly different, but yeah, the release schedules are sometimes totally different. I mean, I remember there's been times before where the Europe or whatever almost got it a little bit before us, and that was kind of odd or whatever. But yeah, Greg, I mean, you are very, very famous. I mean, the Golf WR forums, everybody knows you, whether it's whether they would recognize you in a crowd or not. But yes, there are very few photos of you floating around, because the last time you were on the show, I had to post a photo for the front page article, that said we have Greg Moore on the show, and I'm pretty sure there is like one photo of you that can be used. And that's it. And it's of you taking photos of something else.
And and
it's like the one photo of Greg.
Johan Immelman, Trevor's father, took that on the first hole of the par 3 course. Golly, I'll bet it was probably only 2 or 3 years after Trevor won. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, there's not many out there. There's a few, but not many photos. I would much rather be behind the camera.
But you would think he has like 2 million Instagram followers. Like, he gets recognized all the time. It's like, you, Greg, are you the one who's the bad guy? It's like, how do you guys know what he even looks like? I guess he's been doing it so long and so prolific with the what's in the bags. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, if he'd have said, "Are you PGA 43?"
Right.
That would make more sense. I mean, I do answer questions on the forum, and I do always put Greg, so they associate that back. But more times than not, it's that username. That's my username on my Instagram account, which mostly has very little to do with golf. But yeah, anyway, let's get back to equipment. People don't care about me. That's fine.
I think they do.
Care about
they care more about you than actual equipment. So I mentioned that Fleetwood's staying he's using 2 3-irons, not a driving iron, but there was a TaylorMade driving iron released this week. The Stealth UDI and the DHY both came out, officially launched by TaylorMade. Obviously, this is the week if you're going to release new driving irons. It's either during the Open or the week before the Open at the Scottish. So the timing makes complete sense. Like the rest of the Stealth Iron series, they are packed with Speed Foam Air, which is 69% lighter. Nice. So that obviously allows them some freedom with the weight to move low, to move back, to move forward. Now with the DHY, obviously the CG is going to be a little bit lower. That's going to be a higher launching, performs more like a hybrid type club, whereas the UDI is something you more see in the bags of tour players. A little bit lower launching, more penetrating. You might see these pop up at the Open. We saw, I think, 2 guys had them in the bag this
Robert
week.
McIntyre and Kurt Katayama.
Yep, a lefty version.
Lefty 2-iron, and then Kurt was the 3-iron.
So actually, the first time I saw
Wow.
the UDI in person was Robert's bag, and of course it's a lefty, so it's like I still don't know exactly what it looks like. You know?
No,
You're killing.
No.
You know, these lefties kill me.
yeah, it's interesting because I mean they have, I mean, they're stealth, they're branded stealth, but it's very interesting that they take a lot from the previous UDI, or not UDI necessarily, but the DHY and all that came out, you know, before. They definitely, or I guess it was the Sim version.
The Sim was
but
the
they
last
carry a
one.
lot of.
The Sim 2 line didn't have a UDI.
No.
And I think from memory, the thought process was this Sim UDI is perfect. You know, they didn't have an improvement to make really with the Sim 2. Now with this new Speed Foam Air, and they can kind of change the weight around a little bit, get the CG exactly where they want. Now there's some improvement. I haven't hit it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a righty one at address yet, so I don't know exactly how it looks. But I think they reduced offset a little bit on the UDI, which is, you know, something most of the tour guys always complain about. They don't want to see offset, unless, of course, you're Adam Scott, and then all you want to see is offset.
Well, if you look at the forums, I added Kurt Katayama's 3-iron to that post. So there is a righty there and at address, so you'd be able to see it. I asked him about it, and if he would be willing to talk about it, and he said, I've just put it in the bag and I haven't really even hit it. So he didn't have a lot to be able to say about it yet.
Yeah, and from address, it actually looks pretty good. It doesn't have a ton. It's got, you know, pretty minimal amount of offset. The top line's a little thicker, but not crazy. But overall, yeah, it's a pretty good looking club. I think a lot of the comments on it were pretty positive on it so far.
I just had a topic pop in my brain. I'm going off a sheet right now, not written on the sheet, but you remember the guy with the weird hat?
Yes, Tapio.
So I think he had Titleist all through the bag, Tapio, but he had this 3-wood.
Yes.
I think it was an R11.
Mm-hmm.
So he has an R11 3-wood in the bag. And he shot, you know, I love the old stuff. Like, I get geeked up over the older stuff, even more so than the newer stuff. So I was already fired up about the head. But then he was like, check out this shaft. Stock shaft. Literally stock retail shaft. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But there was a comment on the what's in the bag. Somebody thought that it looked like fairly newer, like maybe he must have gone, you know, if he'd had others, that was like a backup of a backup of a backup, because it just didn't look like, you know, either that or he doesn't slam clubs in the bag and bang them around, because it wasn't all chipped up or anything like that. It's still old. It just didn't look like, you know, that old because it wasn't chipped up. The paint job looked good or whatever. But yeah, I was like, you got to see this, man. It's like stock shaft. And he's like, no, I was going through the camera going, see, he was like, oh my God.
Greg doesn't often come up to me. He's like, hey, you got to see this, you know? So what he does,
But
I take note. Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, no, go ahead.
Well, but I say those, like Greg mentioned, though, those things, I mean, to keep them in great shape, because they do get dirty so easily, they chip so easily, all that, have one that's in.
The paint on those chip worse than any others. They at least somewhat have improved them a little, but the first editions of anything white didn't even matter if it was a putter.
Oh.
Man, they just one slam in the bag with an iron on top of it, chip, chunk.
Which is unfortunate because those RBZ fairway woods were so hot.
They were.
I had one in the bag.
They were
I hit it farther than my driver at the time. I think I had an R9 driver at the time, and then I had an RBZ fairway wood. It's like, why are we even out here with the driver? No point. Anyway, we can move along. Eduardo Molinari has quite the putter in the bag. Have you seen this, Brian?
I have not. Not a name that I've heard in a while either. So
he has this custom tour-only mid-slant special select Newport 2. That's a lot of names to say in a row to get this model right. But I believe that's all right. It's got a custom little neck on it, super deep milling on the face. But then you look at the top line on this putter, and he's got two separated top lines, two separated sight lines on the top line. And then on the back flange, he has one cutting it in the center.
More than a ball whip wide
More than a ball
on
whip,
the
yeah.
top.
Oh.
And then he's got a flange line centered behind that.
Really interesting little setup. And we actually got to talk to him again. If you want to check it out on Off the Beer X TikTok or Off the Beer X Instagram Reels if you want to check him out. Hear him say it in person. But basically what he's saying is he used to do the drill where you like wrap the rubber bands around the putter, separating the center of the face. So it's like you get that immediate feedback. Obviously, if you don't hit the center,
A poor
hit one
man's
of the
Pels.
Yeah, exactly. Poor man's Pels. Yeah. Without spending the $40 or $50, whatever it is, you just wrap the rubber bands around it. So he liked always doing that putting drill. He went to Scotty, like, you know, beam me up, Scotty. Let's get two. Make them look like the rubber band. A very familiar thing for him. Let's turn the drill into something that's actually legal on the course. I thought it made a lot of sense, but what was interesting is I went and looked at some photos of Zalatoris' putter, and he has a very similar setup. He's got two separated on the front, and he's got one line on the back. So if you're into that kind of thing, if you're really trying to focus yourself on hitting the center of the putter, this might be a custom job you might want to do. You can always do a little Sharpie black marker to test it out for yourself. But that's the second time I've seen it, and I've never seen it before, and it makes a lot of sense.
And having those marks there helps him put the rubber bands in that same spot every time.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's still doing the rubber band drill too.
Yeah.
Right. There would be no reason to stop. Sounds like something he's
that's true. I mean, what they always tell you in school, like, what they always tell you in school, study how you're going to take a test or something like that, or however you learn it, you'll be able to, somehow
That was deep.
learn
It's
better
an
with
educational show now. Now it's an educational show.
It's
Nuts in the teacher.
and I've just totally botched it up anyway. So, but yeah, it makes sense. I mean, like you said, the rubber bands, you take them off, the lines that you used to look at are still there.
Yeah,
It's practice like you play.
Yeah, exactly. I was close. I was getting there.
Good thing it's not an instructional show. Okay.
Oof, that would not be good.
This is my last topic from the Scottish Open. After that, if we want to do some free stuff about Scotland, great. Billy Horschel. We were sitting in the media center, and we were just doing work. It's kind of rare that me and Greg are in there and actually listening to the press conferences. No offense to any of the guys. What they're talking about is important.
A lot of times they don't actually even have them right in the same media center. Some of them have moved them in there, but a lot of times it's over in another separate room, so it's a little more, it's quieter. They don't have to worry about somebody coming in or whatever. It's people in a separate media interview room. They're focusing on that. The rest of the people can work in the main. But here, they were sitting right in front of everybody's desk.
Yeah. So typically we're just loading photos of equipment, or I'm writing, transcribing something, or we don't actually involve ourselves in the press conferences typically. But Horschel was up there just absolutely torching everyone that went to live. And he was fired up. And I just look over at Greg, and we're both like, whoa, he's going off right now.
There need to be a clarification, because he did say, I have no ill will against the players.
Right.
I have a problem or ill will towards what some of the players have said against the PGA Tour that he felt not true. Mm-hmm. So in essence, he's saying, look, if they want to go, that's fine, but then don't make stuff up about the PGA Tour to make it justified as to why you left.
Which I liked his point that he made, too, because he was like, listen, the PGA Tour requires you to play 15 events. They're not forcing you to play every week. He was saying, over these next 5 weeks, he won't see his family because he's over in the UK. That's something him and his family agreed upon, but he's like, the PGA Tour is not making me do that. I have to play 15 minimum events. So
true.
He was also saying, So now you're going to play 14 live events because you don't want to play a full schedule, have time for your family. But then you're going to bring all this legal trouble on because you want to play more events now on the DP World Tour or the PGA Tour. So you're going to play 29 events now?
Yeah, because DP World, you're only required to play 4, and then because of the WGCs and the majors and stuff like that, you get up to a bigger number, but their requirement is 4. So it was, and some of the media were saying, look, the players are saying, I did this because I want to play less, but now I'm going to sue because I want to play more. And it's kind of like, what are you doing here? You know,
it is. The whole thing's a bit hypocritical. But the point of this story is not what Horschel was saying about Liv. My point of the story is that Greg got up there and he asked a question. So he's now an official. Wow. He is an official journalist.
Well,
he didn't write the story about the answer, but he asked the question.
Yeah. So normally, Mark Fulcher, who goes by Fooch, who used to caddy for Justin Rose, has been caddying for Billy Horschel and caddied for him at the win at Memorial. And Johnny Longsocks, who's caddied for Paul Casey for years, has retired because he wanted to move back to England and be with his family. And I guess Fooch was having some visa and passport issues and he needed to get rectified. And I saw that Johnny Longsocks was caddying, so I was
Great nickname, by the way.
Yeah, because I don't know his real last name. I mean, that's all I know him by. He wears long socks, and he must have 1,000 pairs of different socks. Whichever city we're in, he's got that baseball or basketball or football team or hockey or red, white, and blue on the 4th of July or in Canada or something. He's got socks that match the area. But anyway. So I just brought it up. I said, hey, you've made an important change in your team. Fooch is not on the bag. Johnny Longsocks on the bag. Can you fill us in? And straight-faced and right in there he goes, I've been struggling a little bit since Memorial. We missed the cut at the U.S. Open. And, it just got to the point where I had to let Fooch go.
Yeah, he was like, I fired him.
No, he said let go. He's straight-faced. And all the other and I'm sitting there laughing because I know it's not true.
Well, it was right after it was like a little heated. There was
there was because he was
going off on Liv for like
he was hot.
7 minutes.
Yeah,
and he asked,
and everybody else in there they're dead silent, and then he goes, no, I'm just kidding you. And then he brought up the part about the passport and the visa, trying to get things straightened out.
Everyone was like, oh, thank God he was kidding. But he got a standing ovation after he got off the podium. Normally there's no reaction in the media room, especially like real journalists. They take themselves pretty seriously. They don't want to root for anyone. They don't want to be a fan. But people were standing up like clapping for him because I think he kind of said publicly what some media members or kind of the general public had in their mind about, just the hypocrisy of what
the fact that he was honest.
Yeah, right.
I mean, and that's not the,
he wasn't dancing around at all.
Yeah. And that's the way Billy is. He's going to tell it to you right straight, and like it or not. That's why, some people may not like him on social media, but it's don't ask the question if you're not going to like the answer, because I'm going to give you my answer. And that's good. That's a good thing.
Now, there was a little bit more Horschel news. I guess this is turning into the Horschel podcast. But I wanted to talk to him about his custom irons. I had never talked to him personally about them. So what he does with his irons is he'll take a 6-iron head and turn it into a 7-iron. Basically, because he doesn't want the club to dig, he wants to engage the bounce a little more and take a little offset off. So all of his irons are bent, I believe, 4 degrees, which is pretty significant.
Wow.
And the Titleist guys, they ground off like the number on the sole. So the 6-iron head now stamped 7 and, et cetera, down the bag. So I wanted to ask him about that. We're obviously doing some more interview videos on Instagram and TikTok.
He also said, though, they do grind a little bit of the trailing edge down because it would have way too much bounce.
Right.
So they're making it exactly, it's not going to dig, it's not going to bounce. They're making exactly the way he wants it to interact with the turf.
Yeah, it's like a little bit cleaner. Yeah. And he wants the offset, sharpened up a little bit.
Yep.
I think he wants a little less offset. But, so we're mid-interview. I got the iPad out. We're doing the video. He's explaining it. All of a sudden, Justin Thomas starts creeping towards the camera. And he's photobombing this thing, making all sorts of funny faces behind the camera. And I'm dying laughing.
He's got the arm mannerisms and
he's like matching his arm mannerisms. Really funny video. Definitely check it out. We got that one on YouTube.
And Billy was talking about his success recently, and Justin gives it the money sign with the fingers behind him. It was perfect. It's hilarious. You got to watch it.
Yeah, and then after the video, obviously JT taps him on the shoulder. Horschel was like, you bastard, you got me. And I lost my train of thought. What was I just going to say?
Well, you did shut it off in time because there were a few
there was
expletives that we couldn't post, but
and then we're watching it back, and he was like, I saw you smiling behind the camera. I was like, there's no way I'm killing it this well. This interview's not going that well. I told him, JT was back there for 20 seconds
the whole time.
Really funny video. They've obviously both been in the news, kind of talking about Liv.
Oh yeah,
it's been very serious, and to just kind of see that they have their sense of humor, having a little fun out there still.
Yeah, I mean JT's interview, they asked him about how Taylor Gooch had compared Liv in Portland to the Ryder Cup, and JP was like, no, it's nowhere close to the same. Not going to happen. And he said Ryder Cup and or President's Cup, of course. But JT did, but it's like, no, it's not the same.
No way it is. No way. I mean, as good as it may be, not Ryder Cup.
So in terms of equipment, that's all I got. Do you remember anything else that comes to mind, Greg? I mean, you shot about, 29? What's in the bag this week?
No, I think it was only 22.
Slacking overseas.
Yeah,
half a work week. Okay.
Yeah, I mean we did go. I did go over and walk North Barrack Golf Club and shot hole by holes.
Yep.
The guys that like to see that will no longer have the Golf WX watermark over it, so they can see all the picture without something blocking. It was a great walk.
Beautiful place.
Yes, we had a blast. Andrew's got some other stuff from there that he'll post a little bit later.
Yep. We talked to the head pro, and he knows it's Martin Hirsch.
Yep.
I believe his name. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Hirsch, probably.
Hirsch, yeah. Martin, super nice guy, super knowledgeable guy, especially about the history of the club. And kind of just learning how.
Well, and his father had been the head golf professional there before him.
Right. And he also.
Oh, wow.
His father also played in Open Championship.
Yep.
A couple different Open Championships. So he just bleeds golf. He loves it. You can see how fired up he is about North Barrack. However you actually pronounce it. Everyone kind of pronounces it a little bit differently. But we talked to the head pro in depth. We will have that interview up. Hopefully by the time this podcast drops, you can actually check it out and see what we're talking about. But the course itself is just unbelievable. That's really where the Redan Green started, the Barritz Green, and he said the Punch Bowl as well started there. So just a lot of history and just beautiful. It's like the Pebble Beach of Scotland, I call it. I don't know if other people call it that, but the view that you see, I mean, it's very similar. What do you think, Greg? You think I'm off base there?
No, very similar with so many holes along the water and close to the water. I mean, literally, you can hit it on the beach and play it from the beach when the tide's out. Maybe even when the tide's not out. I mean, it's a huge beach. I wanted Andrew to go down there so I could film him Chariots on Fire, but he wouldn't run on the beach for me. So I don't know what the deal is.
Chariots on Fire.
I told him
Chariots
he could
on
do
Fire,
that.
but I said it'd be Chariots on Fire when he's running.
I told him he could do that if he wants, and I'll hold the camera, but I ain't getting there. Plus, the water is freezing cold.
Oh, I bet.
So, did you walk another course?
We
tried to walk Muirfield.
Yeah.
Funny little story about Muirfield as well. Do you want to start the story, because you were talking to the guy at first?
So he must be the starter. Has been there for a long time, and he had nice enough to let us at least come inside the gate. He said we couldn't walk the golf course, but he said you could go behind the first tee, the 18th green, the 10th tee, the 9th green, and just take photos, but don't get any golfers in the close-ups in the photo. And then when we kind of went inside, and I went in the golf shop and bought a few things. And in the meantime, I'm over there thanking him and talking to him, and found out he was a golf WRXer. And he saw Andrew, and he goes, Andrew, what's his last name? I said, Tursky. He goes, I know him. He wrote something nasty about me. And I was like, ooh, whoa, Andrew, get over here. Go.
I was like, uh-oh. But yes, I did kind of say some nasty things.
They weren't nasty.
It was about 8-9 years ago. I was over in Scotland playing a bunch of different courses with my dad and our family friends. My friends my age, the dad is also friends with us. I played Little League baseball with them, went to college with them, all that. And we were over there just, having a golf trip. It wasn't really a content trip. I was working for Golf WRX at the time. And I turned my round at Muirfield into a written piece. So I just basically gave my opinion and perspective on what it was like playing Muirfield. Because not everyone gets to play Muirfield, They don't normally let just any public golfer out there. I think it was either part of a package or we had a hookup to get on. I don't even remember exactly how we got on, but afterwards I wrote a story of just kind of what it was like. It's a little stuffy in there at times. They know who they are, and it's a private club. I think that's kind of how people may view Augusta in America, and I think that's how they view Muirfield in Scotland. You need to wear a suit jacket and a tie to go in and eat. It's just one of those type places.
Yeah.
And what I said was, at the gate, we were kind of greeted with a bit of a condescending tone, like, who are you guys type thing. And to be fair, we were running a little late, not past the tee time, but we were only, 20 minutes early. One of the guys in our group, he had wanted to hit balls, and they were like, you're way too late for that. But I had written in the story that the guy holding the clipboard was being a little condescending upon our entry, wanting to know who we are and why we were there. So I put that in the story. Funny enough, he was the guy with the clipboard.
And he read it. He did tell me he no longer reads any of those reviews or anything like that, because
I think that turned him off to the reviews.
And Andrew apologized to him.
I did apologize because I felt that I needed to apologize because we were running a little late.
In the story, it's not, and I think he jokingly said you wrote something nasty about it, but it wasn't nasty.
I actually wrote a pretty nice review, of course. I think it was very complimentary.
Yeah, I read the story and I thought it was well done. And I think it was his way of poking a little fun back at us.
Yeah.
And he did say
he got me back. 9 years later, he got me
they've
back.
gotten better at how they try to come across. So
right.
I'm sure just like Augusta has loosened, maybe not loosened up a lot, but with Fred Ridley as the chairman, it's a lot different than it was when Clifford Roberts was the chairman. So there you go.
Yeah, that is what they said. They said,
it's pretty funny.
5 years ago, it wasn't exactly like it is now, and I felt they were a lot more welcoming this time around. They were very nice. They answered my questions. super politely, honestly, super politely declined an interview, but one of the assistants over there. He kind of took me through the clubhouse, gave me a tour, told me about the history, showed me a bunch of different pictures and merchandise and stuff they had on the walls. Just really nice. They were fairly welcoming. Obviously, we were just showing up. We didn't have anything on the schedule, so the fact they allowed Greg to take some photos and us to talk to them and even make it past the gates, I thought was pretty cool. And they had
the gentleman's name, George Smiley.
Yes. Shout out to George Smiley.
Yes.
I don't know if you listen to the show or
hopefully he does.
Off on
Super good guy. Was very respectful in how he told us we should go about trying to get in touch with certain people. Told us that there were a couple of historians that if we do get back at some point, whether it's this year or in future years, that they would be the people to talk to, that they would be more than happy because they like getting that history out. They're not looking for any advertisement. It's not like they need to advertise that we need golfers or anything like that. They just like people to understand how the club started, where it's gone, and then where they maybe even think it's going. I don't know, but super good guy. Yeah, George was all right.
Like every course in Scotland, it's just baked in history. And I think telling those stories, whether you're into history or not, it's just if you love the game of golf, kind of know where the sport came from. I think it's important, and they have a lot of cool stories to tell. So at some point, hopefully in the near future, not the distant future, I'd like to tell some of those stories and share the history. I will go through the proper channels at George's advice. So big shout out to him. Very nice. And even though I was not as nice to him 9 years ago in my article. Just one other point of note. We stopped at a golf museum today at Gullen. Do you remember the exact name of it? It was the coolest place ever.
Heritage of Golf, wasn't it?
Heritage of Golf Museum, yeah.
Yep. Little hole in the wall right next to the Glen
so unsuspecting
golf shop.
And had so much.
Just amazing.
Yeah, I thought was the coolest thing was the feathers in the cap, and you were kind of telling me how a feathery golf ball is made.
Yeah, they take a top hat and they'd fill it with feathers, and they knew that's how many when they steamed them and soaked them that they could stuff into a golf ball. To a feathery golf ball.
A lot of feathers.
It looks like it.
Full of feathers in there.
Yeah, so they did have a top hat full of. They're not like super long feathers. They're all like little fuzzy pinquill feathers or something like that. But still, it was a full top hat full of feathers.
Yeah, really cool stuff. If you're ever in the area, come over to Scotland. Go to the Gullen Pro Shop. It's across the street. It's literally the pro shop where the pro is. Because there's two different ones. There's course.
There's a private membership, just like at North Berwick. There's a private membership, even though it's a public type golf course. They let the public on at Gullen. They have a private membership. Actually, it might even be two. So there's two different little areas.
Yeah.
And the golf shop is closer to the first tee. And the museum actually is by appointment only. So if you don't make an appointment, you might not be as fortunate as Andrew and I were treated, because we threw out the Golf WX name right away and then asked if we could go in, and the assistant opened the door and turned the alarm off and stood in there for 20 plus minutes while we went around and took photos of everything.
Yeah.
So
we're going to definitely get that up on our social media channels. I'll probably do a story or two on the front page coming soon. But if you're in the area, I definitely recommend it, because that was a collection of old golf history unlike anything I've ever seen, to be honest. I know we are going to go to the R&A Museum while we're out here, so maybe that will surpass. But as of now, definitely the coolest place that I've ever been. Super highly recommended.
And I've been to the USG Museum or Golf House a number of times, and this was a way scaled down version, but he had a lot of interesting stuff for as small as his little museum was. Photos, equipment, old equipment, not so old equipment, but interesting equipment. I mean, he had a Bass Ackwards putter, tiger shark.
Some of the original wedge designs.
Oh yeah, just
Brassies, Nibblers.
Wow.
All the old stuff. I thought the Walter Hagen spoon wedge was the coolest thing I had seen. It's a concave wedge. It wasn't like flat face.
Oh, really?
Concave, really cool. Yeah, I'd never seen that before. So look out for that if you're into that old stuff like I am.
So Andrew, tell us a little bit about how you're driving around the countryside of Scotland. How are you getting around?
Well, Greg is chauffeuring me. I've been sitting in the back and I made him wear a top hat.
It kept every time we were at a light with a car next to us, he would ask him for Grey Poupon. But
no, he's getting us around really well. I would not be able to do it. Like, these roads are really tight, for one.
Yeah.
Two, you're on the wrong side of the road. There's a lot of like roundabouts. I'm sitting there, I'm sketching out the whole time. Like, I might say a thing or two, like, "Oh, Greg, watch it." I'm bugging out the entire time. He did almost snap the rear view mirror off.
Thankful, not rear view, the left-hand side mirror.
The side.
There was a big-ass truck coming at us on a narrow little road, and so there was a small tree branch that's sticking out, and like, wow, and the mirror just folded. Luckily, it folded, so he just rolled the window down and flipped it back out. But I was like, I'm losing a mirror before I'm letting that truck run into me. I mean, what happened to the mirror, Mr. Moore? Hey, it's covered. It's wearing shirts, so don't worry about it.
Yep.
It's in the boot in the back.
The boot, the boot.
Aside from that incident, he's been doing a great job. I very much appreciate him doing that.
Yeah, the first day he kept telling me, because I'm driving one hand, he's like, keep your hands on the steering wheel.
Seriously. Well, he's been going through his playlist. He's got stuff on there that you wouldn't expect. Let's just put it that way. I won't call him out, but he's got some heat on there.
But he's got...
I'll drop one name, and that's it. Salt and pepper. He's got salt and pepper.
What about Jason Derulo? Jason Derulo?
Yep. Sneaky. Greg's got some cool stuff.
Pitbull. So there's some stuff on there.
And then the other, I guess, interesting point of note for this trip is that I currently have no clothes because my bag was on the airline. It's been a tough trip. We're doing okay.
Yeah, that's rough. I mean, that's having
got
nothing.
My health, my laptop, my phone, and my chargers. So we're okay. We can still do our job. But it's been a struggle otherwise.
Well, hopefully you get it back soon. I guess they found it, but hopefully you get it back soon.
It's been located. It was stuck in Dublin. And I was not the only one to lose the bag. I was in a line of about 100 people. And the suitcase situation in the Edinburgh airport, there's loose bags everywhere. Like thousands of bags that people have not been able to claim because they come in late. So I would suggest to anyone flying to Scotland, don't check a bag.
And I would
spread
suggest
that message to the world that I'm doing a service. If you don't want to be in this situation, I would just honestly recommend check a bag.
I would suggest fly direct. No plane changes, no layovers, no issues.
I wasn't the only one covering the Scottish Open that had this problem.
No problem, and I flew direct.
We're happy for him, aren't we?
You got a free rain suit out of it.
I think it's a free rain suit. Well, that's our adventures in Scotland. That's the update on Scottish Open equipment. We have changed locations to a different hotel. We will be covering the Open Championship at St. Andrews, 150th edition. So we're going to have a whole lot to talk about next week. I think the plan, I guess, is to have Greg, unfortunately, on again next week. So we'll update you just with our travels. We don't have inside the ropes passes necessarily. We do have player badges. I don't know if we want to say the name of it.
Yeah, maybe not right now. Maybe next week we will.
Yeah. We'll wait until he delivers them.
We just don't know where those are going to allow us to go. Yeah. For the most part, just like Augusta, no media gets inside the ropes at all anyway. So we're going to make do the best we can. And worst case scenario, we'll at least get into hopefully where the trucks are, and then get out on the golf course and do some stuff. We don't expect a lot of equipment changes anyway, so they just may be, quick while the bag's on the tee, getting the caddy to let me snap some, general shots of bags. But we'll have full reign on video, and we expect Andrew to just kill it, hopefully with interviews and stuff like that.
Hopefully the bag comes in. I would like my microphone setup to be available, but we'll see. We'll see. It'll be fun regardless. Just getting to go to the Open for 150. Tiger probably playing his last at St. Andrews. Obviously a very special event this year. So we'll be back next week to report on all of it. And this was Two Guys Talking Golf, live from Scotland. We'll see you next week.
Still go, go, go.